Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're getting inside the head of one of the world's most talked about figures, Elon Musk. We are going to map out his entire worldview, from the meaning of life all the way to a future where work is optional. And it's all based on his own words from a recent, really wide-ranging conversation.
And we're going to start right here with this bombshell of a prediction. I mean, just think about that for a second. A world where, probably within our lifetimes, having a job is basically just a hobby. It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, doesn't it? Well, to understand how Musk gets to such a radical conclusion, we have to work our way backwards and really uncover the fundamental principles that shape his entire reality.
All right, let's dive right in. Now, you'd think a guy like Musk would start with, I don't know, rockets, right? Or maybe electric cars, but nope. It all begins with this deep philosophical quest he's been on since he was just a kid. So this all goes back to a bit of an existential crisis he had when he was about 12 or 13. You know, that time when we all start asking those big questions. He was wrestling with, why are we even here? What is the point of all this? But then he took it a step further. He started wondering, what are the truly profound questions about the universe that we don't even have the words to ask yet? And you know what? A huge piece of his thinking was shaped by The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, he doesn't see it as just some funny sci-fi story. For him, it's basically a book on philosophy disguised as humor. And its central idea, that figuring out the right question is way harder than finding the answer, that became an absolute cornerstone of his entire worldview. So here it is. This is the crucial takeaway from all that philosophical wrestling. Musk came to this really profound conclusion. He believes the core mission, the whole point of humanity, is to expand the scope and scale of our collective consciousness. The goal isn't just to find answers. It's to become smart enough as a species to finally understand the right questions to ask about the universe. Okay, so you've got this big abstract philosophy. How does that turn into, well, anything real? If humanity's goal is to expand its consciousness, it's got to have some kind of digital nervous system to connect all of our individual minds together, right? And that, right there, is the surprising why behind the Platform X. See, in his mind, it's not just another social media app. In his framework, it's a tool that's designed to literally wire together a collective human mind, letting ideas flow globally, and creating what he calls a collective consciousness of humanity. Now, according to Musk, the old version of the platform was actually failing at this mission. His reasoning is that it amplified one specific ideology that came out of its San Francisco base. So the thinking goes, for a true collective consciousness to actually form, the platform itself has to be a neutral pipeline. By trying to be centrist, the stated goal is to get a much more accurate, less distorted signal of what humanity as a whole is actually thinking. So once you have this hyper-connected humanity and you boost it with incredibly powerful technology, the next logical step in Musk's blueprint is a total transformation of society itself. And this brings us right back to that wild prediction we started with, the end of work as we know it. And he's not talking about some distant, far-off future. He's convinced that the progress in AI and robotics is accelerating so fast that in less than 2 decades, working for a living is just going to be a choice. It'll be something you do if you want to, like a hobby. For him, this isn't some kind of crisis. He sees it as the next logical step in our evolution as a species. You know, just like we moved from just trying to survive to the 9-to-5 work week, he believes this progression is going to free all of humanity from the daily grind and allow us to pursue something more. The result? A future of what he calls universal high income, basically a world of radical abundance. AI and robotics will be able to produce any goods and services we could possibly need, to the point where, and this is his quote, if you can think of it, you can have it. Money itself might even become kind of pointless. So, let's follow this train of thought. If AI can create a world of total abundance and can create simulated realities that are completely indistinguishable from our own, then what does that say about our existence? This is where his thinking takes its most speculative turn, and where it all connects back to that original mission. So his argument here is actually super simple. He says, look, in just 50 years, video games have gone from Pong, literally 2 rectangles and a dot, to these incredibly photorealistic real-time worlds. If you just follow that trend line, it's pretty much inevitable that they will become completely indistinguishable from the reality we see around us. And this leads him to a pretty startling conclusion. If there are going to be countless simulated realities, what are the odds that we, right here, right now, just happen to be in the one original base reality. He thinks the probability is pretty high that we're not. And this isn't just some fun thought experiment. It loops right back to his number one mission. Because if we are in a simulation, well, then the most important thing we can possibly do is expand our consciousness, maybe to the point where we can finally understand the nature of the simulation itself.
Okay, so we've gone from the meaning of life all the way to simulated universes. It's a massive cosmic philosophy. But what does any of this mean for the entrepreneurs, the builders, the creators out there today? How does any of this translate into actual practical advice?
You know, after all that high-level stuff, his advice boils down to something surprisingly simple and grounded. He says, forget about chasing money directly. Instead, just focus on creating useful products and services. Your goal should be to be a net contributor to society, to make more than you take. If you can do that, he believes, success is just going to follow as a natural result. Ultimately, this whole philosophy reframes the entire act of creation. It's not just about building a business or making something cool. In his worldview, it's about adding to that central mission of expanding humanity's understanding of the universe. Which really leaves just one final question for all of us to think about. What's your contribution going to be?